So far this fall, many people might have heard in the news about a new strain of respiratory illness that really hasn't been talked about before, enterovirus D68, better known as EVD68. I had the privilege of sitting down earlier this week with a specialist from Ascension St. Mary's here in Detroit Lakes to find out more about EVD68. Is this really something we need to be worried about? Where the heck did this thing come from? How is it supposed to be treated? Well, it turned out the enterovirus has actually been something that's been around going back to the 1960s. It was first discovered in California as a respiratory infection. In fact, there are hundreds of different strains of EVD. We happen to be worried about this EVD D68 right now in the upper Midwest and frankly across the country, but really the Midwest is where we've been focusing it on. In fact, it was interesting to find out the rhinovirus, common cold, the thing we all seem to deal with every year around now and through, well, till the springtime it seems like, is actually not something you get in the summertime typically. In fact, if you get a quote-unquote summer cold, it's probably one of these enteroviruses, which lets you know that it acts a lot like a cold. Now, why this is in the news right now is because we have not seen this new strain of D68, which means if you're exposed to it, you're probably going to get sick. But here's the good thing about it. The sickness is pretty much very much so similar to the common cold. In fact, treatment for it is the same as the common cold. The reason it's making the news right now is, as I mentioned, it's a new strain. We haven't seen it before, so we don't have natural immunities built up. When these viruses have been in our system or out in society for a few years, typically we are able to build up some type of resistance to that particular strain of that disease. Who it could typically be troublesome for are those that have asthma or severe respiratory problems. Now, if you do go to the doctor because you have severe respiratory issues, shallow breathing, deep breathing problems, whatever, and it does turn out to be enterovirus D68, don't be surprised if the treatment is just rest and fluids. There might not necessarily be antibiotics. In fact, some of the reasons that we're getting so many of these diseases and new strains of viruses is because we've antibioticed ourselves to death over every single little bug that came around over the last 20, 30 years, but that's a conversation for another day. This most recent strain of D68, this one discovered, actually started in the Kansas City area, and since then has spread to about 175 cases in over 20-something states, with recently the first diagnoses in the state of Minnesota down the Twin Cities area, and also in neighboring North Dakota. So chances are somebody in the area could come up with this enterovirus D68 and it could flood through the area. I know a lot of people have already had the sniffles, had colds and sickness. Heck, it might already be here. Because that's the thing. Again, a lot like the common cold, you could get it, treat it, be fine, and not even realize you had it. I just wanted to take time to talk about this because every time we hear one of these new diseases over the last 10, 15 years, there's a tendency to be a little bit of panic and misunderstanding. Thinking back to the avian flu, swine flu, H1N1, you know, all these types of things and all different kinds of diseases. I mean, the Ebola thing going on in Africa. This definitely is no plague per se, but can give you a nasty cough and is something to be aware of, especially for folks that have children that may be asthmatic or older people that are as well. The important thing is, though, with this, the way to prevent it, just like the common cold, wash your hands, don't come in contact with fluid with sick people, get plenty of rest and vitamins, and keep yourself healthy. Heck, that's really good advice for every day of the week, not just now when we're fighting these weird respiratory illnesses.